These are questions from The Independent in the UK. And the first question is, how does he, I'm assuming that's me, Sal, how does he see the development in video conferencing, particularly new services like Google Hangouts, as affecting the provision of distance learning? Is that something that he sees the Khan Academy using, and in what kind of time frame? So interesting question. So there's a couple of layers here. First of all, just kind of the idea of distance learning. And this is where, I think right now everything that's online learning kind of gets grouped into, distance learning and online learning and all of the same. And most people kind of don't really differentiate between what they are. Right now, what's happening with distance learning is that they are, for the most part, very similar to what happens in physical classes. It's just the people aren't in the same room. So distance learning, fundamentally, they still involve when someone is participating in the learning, there's a live professor or teacher on the other side of that, and they still are kind of signing up for courses. They still meet at a certain time to do their courses or to do their interactions. And so I would call it much more in the domain of synchronous learning, which means that all the parties have to be there at the same time and that all the students are also kind of moving along at the same pace. So it really is exactly as the physical model. It's just they've taken the idea that you have to be in the same place. What Khan Academy, and Khan Academy isn't the only version of this, but Khan Academy, we kind of view it as more of an asynchronous model. So asynchronous, which really just means that things aren't necessarily happening at the same place, which is the idea that I could record this video right now and you don't have to be listening to it right now. You might listen to this video an hour later or a day later or a year later. And so you can really go through things at your own pace. And so we don't view video conferencing as maybe our main delivery mechanism, although distance learning, vendors or companies or schools might view video conferencing as their main way to get to people. We think, hey, look, we can record videos, people can consume those at their own pace, and we can give people exercises and feedback that they can do at their own pace. Where we do think video conferencing could be really, really, really interesting, and this is something that we have not done yet, we've kind of thrown around the idea and we just really have to get the bandwidth to address it, is I think video conferencing is an amazing way to have peer-to-peer interactions. So peer-to-peer, I'll just do the acronym, peer-to-peer interactions. So right now in a lot of the classrooms that are piloting Khan Academy, or even the ones that are doing it on their own, and this is what we really advocate, is every student works at their own pace, but when they're stuck, either the teacher intervenes based on the data that the teacher sees, or even better, a student intervenes and helps their peer. And we think that there's no reason why that has to sit just in a physical classroom, that you could actually transcend a physical classroom. And that's where something like video conferencing could be really valuable. If two people could share a blackboard that looks very similar like this, and they have either a tablet device or a pen tablet like what I'm using right now, they can run a tutoring session with each other. It would even be cool if they could record it and it could be archived for other people to use it in the future. So that is really powerful, and that's mainly in the tutoring space. So that you can have peer-to-peer tutoring or really teaching or mentoring even. And then the other interesting place where peer-to-peer interactions could be interesting, I think this is completely untapped, is the whole idea of assessment. Right now, Khan Academy, the assessment piece happens. You're doing exercises. It keeps track of how you're doing. In a traditional classroom, assessments are some form of paper exam. It could be multiple choice, could be free answer, it could be essay exam. But what I think most of us have always realized is that the highest form of assessment is either the practical assessment or the oral assessment. So practical would literally mean, if you're studying to be a nurse, someone observe you while you're trying to, insert an IV into someone's arm. And oral examination, and this is really the gold standard for what we see in the academia, is look, when you're going through your qualifiers, there's an oral part of that examination, and then essentially you'll sit in front of a room full of faculty members, and they'll grill you on and make sure you really, really, really do understand a concept deeply. And so what we think we could do, where on the peer-to-peer side, is eventually have not only just the kind of assessment that we already have in place at Khan Academy, but maybe an oral assessment where, right now maybe you are we don't have the proper words for it, but maybe you are a level 1. You're level 1 in trigonometry or level 1 in algebra, and you want to go you want to become level 2 in trigonometry. You want to get into this I guess smaller circle, this more elite circle of people who've gotten to this deep level of trigonometry. And to do that, maybe on a baseline, you have to show that you've done something on kind of the traditional exercises on Khan Academy at your own pace, and you've been able to prove competency there. But to really make it, then you would have an oral examination with maybe 5 people from level 2, and if maybe 4 out of the 5 say that you are ready for level 2, then you will be bumped up to level 2. And then one of your responsibilities as someone in level 2 is to assess future people from level 1, coming from level 1. And then, of course, then your next aspiration is to go to level 3 or go to become a master of all of the math or whatever you might want to say. So I think peer-to-peer interactions could be really, really powerful when it comes to the assessment part. And I think, I'd be hard-pressed to see how this isn't more rigorous than really all of the assessment that has in place, because you're not just being assessed by arbitrary peers, you're being assessed by peers who've already really proven themselves to really deeply understand the concept. The other things, when you say, is this that something that he sees the Khan Academy using, and what kind of time frame? Well, once again, we do see ourselves using it, but we don't know the time frame. It's just a bandwidth issue. And that reminds me. So the other area where I think video conferencing could be really powerful is in the idea of foreign language. So once again, the gold standard in foreign language is really immersion, but that's obviously not always possible or economically possible. But the second best thing to immersion is actually having live interactions with people on the other side of the world, or maybe even not on the other side of the world. One thing I want to do with my 2.5-year-old is maybe get him a Skype or maybe a Google Plus buddy or whatever it is in different countries, so that he can start chatting with kids maybe his own age or a little older, a little younger, and they can just start to at least get the basics of each other's languages and start to teach each other. So I think it could have a lot to be done in not full immersion, but pseudo immersion for foreign language. For foreign language learning. And then a lot of the core for the foreign language, like the vocabulary and the grammar, we could probably do it on our exercise platform, but this is really what gives you that deeper understanding of it. The next question is there a possibility of Khan Academy's qualifications, achievements being externally validated at some point, such that they're recognized internationally as a measure of academic achievement? So there definitely is a possibility, and we are exploring to see how can we validate that when someone does something on Khan Academy that it is really coming from them? And we think there are ways to do it. We could even have, places where you could go and you could show your ID or whatever and say, hey, look, this is me. I'm now going to do the Khan Academy there. And then we could validate that, yes, this was definitely the person who did that. And then once you do that, we could give badges or validations that, look, this person really does know that information. And then it's a matter of making sure that they are accepted broadly. And I think this actually touches on a generalized problem in that right now you have, and I've talked about this in other videos and other lectures, right now education is kind of a mixture of, you have the learning part, you have the credentialing part, and then you have a little bit of a socialization part. You have a little bit of socialization. And when you go to a university and you pay the big tuition, you're kind of, you're getting all of this stuff. And depending who you ask, different people think they're paying for providing different things. If you ask most students at most universities, they're probably most focused on the credential. But if you ask most of the universities, they'll say, hey, no, all of our resources are going to this right over here. The credential is just to make sure that people are going at are learning the things, but they're actually spending the resources over here. And so that question, I think, about whether Khan Academy can give credentials, or frankly whether a third party can get credentials, I think is just the whole issue of, can we decouple this? Can we separate? Can we create a line of separation between the learning side of education and the credentialing side? And I think if you do that, generally something really powerful happens. If we can create, and it doesn't have to come from Khan Academy, it can come from a government, it could come from NGOs, it could come from who knows where it comes from. If there is an internationally recognized battery of examinations, assessments, and deep assessments, they can be practical, they can be oral, they can be paper-based, all of the above. And so if you have something like this that is internationally recognized, then all of a sudden the rest of the education world will compete right over here, and then their students will just try to get this thing right over here. And what's exciting about something like that is then Khan Academy could compete on equal footing, because if students who choose to go through Khan Academy for free perform just as well on that as the student who's spending tens of thousands of dollars, then, or maybe certain students who say, this just works better for me, or maybe some students will just learn on the job. they'll learn on the job, or they'll learn from textbooks. But it allows students to learn the best way they can, and the best way that fits their career and even their economic situation. And the other good thing is, if this is internationally recognized, it solves the problem that right now there are some big name schools that if you're lucky enough to attend one of those schools, you do have something on your resume that anywhere in the world or anywhere in a country someone might recognize it. But the problem is most universities aren't internationally recognized, or aren't recognized broadly beyond one region. And so you have students who are doing this really, really well right now. They're learning, or they're potentially learning really well at maybe at their regional university or at their community college, and then they get this credential, right over here. But this credential is not universally recognized. It's not, they go to the neighboring state or the neighboring country and people don't know how to assess that credential. This way, those students who really do learn their material well will be able to take these external assessments and prove that they know it just as well as the student who went to Oxford or Harvard.